Hey there, it's Trisha with Easy E-mini Trade, and I'm going to go over the setups from this morning, ones that I took, ones I didn't take, and I'll give you my reasons for both taking and passing on them. And hopefully you'll find it helpful based on all the information that we went over on the webinar on Thursday evening. Everybody who registered, I'm going to have an open house on Friday. So everybody who attended the webinar will get an invite. And also, if you're already a member of my chat room, you'll get an invite. And also, anybody who purchases the webinar recording will get an invite as well. And just keep in mind that the proceeds do go to a few worthy causes. So anyway, just see if you feel led to spend the $10 for the recording or not. Totally up to you. I will say I don't hold anything back. You will get all the settings for the indicators and so forth, and then you'll be able to back it up with some live screen time with me on Friday morning. Okay, so let's get right to it now. So I've got NQ up, and you can trade whatever you are comfortable trading. This morning wasn't nearly as volatile as it has been, but regardless, I still use the 6 range chart for my entry over here on the far right, and then I've got a 12 range for the filter. So just doubled up the size of the chart that I'm taking my entries from, and all I really care about, unless we have a really strong trend, all I really care about is looking at the double stochastic on the filter chart. If we have a really strong move and I'm trying to find a way in, I will use whatever chart I can to find a way in, but today it wasn't necessary. We were pretty choppy first thing off the get-go until we actually started to move higher. So during the webinar, I talked about how I have a no zone around the round number that I stay away from, and that's what you'll see here on this 6 range chart here on the upper right. That shaded area is my no zone. So I generally pick an area of resistance above the round number and an area of support below. So with this morning, I was using 65.0450 as the top end that I want to stay away from, and the pivot point on the downside here at 92. So anything that happened within this range, in that area, I am not interested in. And that's just from my experience. It generally gets stuck, so I just did not want to fight with it. Obviously, you can decide to do whatever you like. If we're in a range, I can buy support, sell resistance, buy support, sell resistance. But at 9:34 in the morning, you really don't know that. So we get this buy, and generally, I'll use 9:33 to start taking the trades if it makes sense to me. So I don't even start to look until after 9:33, or unless the market has picked a direction. If it's chopping sideways, I will wait until it picks a direction before jumping in. So that's just what I like to do. So here at 9:34, we actually get a buy. You can see, I'm going to just make this a little bit fatter so you can see here. There we go. So we get closed above the super trend stop here. And if you're using the double filter meaning the 2 stochastics on the entry chart and the filter chart, we want them all to line up. So here we get above the super trend stop, and our green line's above the red, so that's a go. And then when we look at the 12 range, the green line above the red, so technically that is a go. Now, I already know that I'm not going to take this, and the reason being is because of my no zone. So I am not interested at all in this shaded area, period, unless we're sideways. So when we get below the super trend stop here, on the 6 range, you can see, I'm just going to put a line there so you can see what's going on the chart below. So here we close below, green line below the red, and here when we look at our filter, it's valid for a short. But once again, I am not taking it. Now, if you wanted to take it, you would just be aware of where support and resistance areas are. If you look at this on this 1 minute chart here, or even the 2 minute chart right here at that time, you can see that we are just chopping around. We don't really have any real direction at that time, and we're in that no zone. So I'm not interested in any of those. Again, I will reiterate, you do whatever you feel led to do. I do not need all of these charts to line up. If I'm looking to take an entry off the 1 minute, I'd like to see ideally the 5 minute and the 2 minute agree, or even just the 5 minute. If I'm looking to take an entry off the 2 minute, I want to see it agree on the entry chart and the 5 minute. So I want my entry chart to match, and I want the next higher time frame or two to match for the direction that I'm taking it. So if you took the buy here, you got stopped out. If you took the short, you got a little something out of it. And the whole point of the filter is to keep us out of this back and forth, go nowhere type of action. So here we get closed above, green line above the red, and when you look down here, the green line is under the red. So not interested in the buy. Even if this were in line, I would not be interested in the buy because of my no zone here. So regardless, back and forth, I'm not doing anything in this area. If you look at it on the 1 minute chart right here on the upper left, you can see we're breaking the small super trend stop right here. And I'm just going to put a line there so you can see right there. And at that time, the green line was breaking above the red, and I only know because I was looking at it. So even though here it doesn't look like it was, it actually was. If you look at it on the 5 minute, green line above the red. If you look at it on the 2 minute at that time, you can see it did not agree for this buy. So it would be a pass. And you do not have to look at all these charts. I know I said that at the beginning of the video, but I know I'll get questions about, too many charts to look at and so on and so forth. Just pick 2 charts, your entry chart and a filter chart. That's all you need to be concerned about. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what I didn't do, and I wish I did after, but right here on the 1 minute where I have this arrow, I was looking to take a buy just above the super trend stop there, and you can see the green line is above the red on the 1 minute. At the time, it was also on the 2 minute, and it was also on the 5 minute. I did not take that because I was not convinced. At the time, we had the high of the day right above our head. I was not convinced that I was going to be able to get through there. So what was going through my head was, okay, if we do bust through the high of the day, then I'll just look for a pullback and find a way in. Obviously, it worked out in a big way, and after the fact, I wish I was in there, but I wasn't. The thing about the NQ or anything that you're trading is at the high of the day or low of the day, unless you have a really strong trend happening, generally we kind of get jerked around up there, and usually what will happen is it will take out the high by a couple ticks and then pull right back, and then pop up, take out the high again, pull right back. So I really do watch in those areas. I'm not going to say I never take a trade up there because that's not true, but here at this time it would have to prove that it wants to go, and then I would look for a way in. So if you entered there, obviously you had a nice runner. And you can trail off your entry chart using the super trend stop, or off any of the charts using the super trend stop. So I'm just going to scroll ahead so you can see the next trade I actually did take. Okay, this wasn't a trade that I took, but this is right at the same time as this setting up on the 1 minute chart. We get closed above the super trend stop here, just on the top edge of our no zone here. But notice the entry chart. If you're using both charts, entry chart and filter chart, to line up, this would be a pass. And keep in mind, it's totally up to you. Again, I know I keep saying that, but if you were to take that, obviously it did work out. And if it was in line on the entry chart, I would have definitely given that one a shot off the entry here, because I could use a smaller stop than off the 1 minute chart. Okay, so now obviously it's popped, right? So now I need a little bit of a pullback in order for me to get in. So here you can see we get our little pullback. You can see it here on the 1 minute chart. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for an entry. And so I get close above the super trend stop here. And generally, I have not been waiting for a close above. I've been putting my order in a couple ticks above or below because of the environment here the last while. If I wait, a lot of times it just takes off without me. So I got in here at what was my entry? I got filled at 65.39 on that one, and green line's above the red on the entry chart. You can see here on the filter chart, red line's above 80 and overbought, and I can take that. Now, an added bonus to that is that we've got that 40 points worth of space, or just about. So chances are good that price is going to move higher in order for that green stochastic line to find its way up to the red one. And so that actually hit the target above, which was an area of support or resistance, previous support resistance at 46.25. And usually what I'll do is I'll have a target sitting out there to get my first exit. And in the environment that we've been having, we've been using 4 or 5 points. So I had a target sitting there at 5 points, and then you can trail anything that you're holding. Now, if it's coming into an area of resistance, there's no point in holding out for, letting it come all the way back to your entry. So you might tighten up your stop if you're holding on to anything hoping for a runner. And then actually you do have some divergence up there. So this is giving you a heads up that price is likely going to at least pull back a bar or two. But you can see here equal highs on price while looking at the green stochastic line, lower highs. So that's giving you a heads up possible pullback. And another option for you is, obviously, if you were like me and didn't take it off the 1 minute, you would be looking for an entry like I was here off the range chart. Another option is you could take it on the break of the the big super trend stop here on the 2 minute, which is right around the same time, maybe a little bit earlier than this. But green line is above the red on the 2 minute, and the 5 minute agrees as well, green line above the red. Now just remember, you can't tell now, but these were all into brand new highs for the day, okay? So you also could take it off the 5 minute. We even talked about that a little bit in the room. If you're going to take it off the 5 minute, you're going to want to also look at one more chart, like maybe a 15 or even a 10 minute, to make sure that it's in line to take it. If you trade off a 5 minute chart, you are going to need a bigger stop than if you're trading off a 1 minute or a small little range chart. So this area here at 46.25, now if this were an area that I could count on it holding and I have divergence, I could short off there. At this stage of the game, we're in an uptrend, based on when we opened at 9:30. So this is the high of the day. So at that time, we really don't know if it's going to hold or just do a small pullback and then continue higher. So I'm not interested in shorting that. But if we were a little bit more sideways, then that would be ideal for what you're looking for at resistance, divergence. Not looking for a short here, but you can see we get below the super trend stop. Green line is below the red here, and this is still in overbought, so technically you'd likely pass on that. Now, if you want to be aggressive, you know that you've got support below you at that 37.50 area and also that 90 EMA. So if you wanted to be aggressive, you could short that, anticipating it trading down to support. I'm not really interested in it, so it's a pass for me. Right here, where it closes above, you can see our green line is above the red, but on our filter chart, the green line is below the red, so I'm not interested in this as a buy. On any of these time-based charts, basically now what we have to wait for is if you're going to look for an entry on there, we have to wait for a close below in order for it to now plot the super trend stop above. And so I've got the two on there, the smaller one and the larger one. All that was gone over during the webinar. Here we get a short at 10:02, green line below the red, green line below the red here. And we just had a pretty strong move higher, and we've got a bunch of chop here to our left, if I was to look to try to take that short. So I'm really not interested in trying it, but if you wanted to give it a shot, you could take it because it is valid, and then you would just look down to the next area of support. So in this instance here, what I would look at is I'm taking it, if I was taking it right on the 90, I would look to see that this held this swing low area here. So that would have to be my first area of concern. Then if it gets through there, then I would be looking down at the 200 period moving average. Just knowing that generally price will kind of chop when price is kind of stuck in between the 90 and the 200, no matter what chart you're looking at it on. Here you get above super trend, and you can see the filter chart, the green line still under the red, so we're not looking for a buy here, and that's off the 6 range chart. So even though it's not in line, you can see that it does go on to hit the area of resistance. If you're confident that it's going to have a good probability of hitting the area of resistance, you can bypass the filter chart if it makes sense to you. The whole point of the filter chart, as I keep saying, is to keep us out of these type of go nowhere type of trades. Because you'll find if you're trading off a small little chart like this, price is going to go above and below the super trend stop over and over and over again unless it's got a decent direction going. Next close below the super trend stop here, 10:06, green line below the red, looking over here, green line's above the red, so short is a pass, even though you can see it goes on to work out. Now this just as easily could have got stuck on this the 90 EMA and not gone anywhere, but in looking to our left, if you're looking at it on a larger chart, you can see that you're taking this short right into all of this congestion over here. And you can see it on a 2-minute, and you can see it on a 5-minute. It's all in the same general area of congestion. So again, you decide. I'm trying to take the trades that have, in my mind, the higher possibility of working out. Next trade that I took was right here at break of this super trend here, green line above the red. And let me scroll over here so you could see it on the filter chart. And filter chart, you can see green line above the red, so I can go ahead and take that as a buy. Now in taking this, I already know that I'm right around that 90, so I might be in for a little heat before it can go. So you can see it pulls back here, and then you can decide to get out and then wait for another entry or just let it hit your stop. Initially you can use, if it's really whippy, you can use the regular super trend to start out with, and you'll see that it does eventually pop there and then a quick pullback. So worked for, likely first target, depending on what your target is. If you're shooting for 6 points, you didn't get 6 points, but put a little change in the pocket. Next trade I took was here at, I'm looking at 1014. 1014 did not agree here. I marked it just so you guys could see. Green line below the red, green above the red, so this short would be a pass. Right here at 1016, off the range chart, took a buy, and I already know going in that I might have to sit through some more heat, just like back here into those moving averages. I'm willing to give it a shot. I already know that we're in a chop area. If you just look to the left and all you see are price bars back and forth, that's telling you that we're not getting any real great follow through at the moment. But regardless, entered in a couple ticks above the super trend stop here. My entry was 65.35.75 and was able to get my 5 points out of it. And if you held out for a little bit more in a runner, you probably could have gotten more than that. I took it all off at the first target, but green line above the red here, and looking over here on the entry chart, the filter chart, green line above the red. So all is a go to try to take that. And that's at 1016. Then There's nothing really to do off the time-based charts until we can get a pullback and a close below the super trend stop, because then we would need a break of it again to the top side. So I'm not looking for a short here on the 1 minute, even though our green line's under the red. If you look at this on the 2 minute chart at that time, I skipped my entry here. Let me first get to my entry, and then I'll go back to explain that area on the 1 minute. Okay, so here's my next entry. I actually was waiting for a pullback because we had this pop up here, right? And that's a new high of the day at that time. So I'm waiting for a pullback to try to take an entry, looking for one on my range chart. So we were looking somewhere in the vicinity of this area here, anywhere between 55 and 56 area for a possible pullback. So price popped and looking for a pullback, somewhere back to this general area. Doesn't quite tag the 90 EMA here, but I'm at a resistance area, old resistance, now support, and that 56.25. And you can see on price here, I have lower lows on price, while on my stochastic, looking at the green line, I have a higher low. So I'm willing to buy this. This is doing everything that I wanted it to do in order to take a pullback. Now you can just jump in when you see divergence at an area of support when you're waiting for a pullback. What I did was I have my small little super trend stop on here with the smaller settings, and I put my order a tick above there. So I get triggered here, and my entry was, what was my entry? At 59.25. And then obviously you can see that it worked out. And keep in mind, this was the high of the day at that time, up there around the 65 area. So if you weren't already in here off divergence, you do get a valid buy here. It looks barely valid, but that red line on the filter chart is in overbought. So if you were to buy this, you would be buying it into the high of the day. And so generally, like I said, I try to stay away from that unless I have room up to the high of the day. So I was already in down here, so I had room to be profitable if it should, if it had difficulty breaking that high area again. So that one worked out just fine for me as well. And then it was just a lot of back and forth. You could see all this chop, 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 chop. And then here, oops. This short here. Close below the super trend stop, green line below the red. Over here, does not agree on the filter chart. So that's a pass. And this would be one that you would be a little bit cautious on. Obviously, you can see it does eventually break down there. Here, if you look at this on the 1 minute chart, breaking the small super trend stop line right here, if you ever take a trade, so you see the green lines below the red there, if you look at it on the 2 minute, you have actually the green line is below the red at that time as well, but you're still in overbought. Barely, but you are. Okay? And then if you use the 5 minute, it does not agree for the short because you're still in overbought there. So you want at least one higher time frame to match, and neither of them do. So if you were to take this anyway off the 1 minute, knowing that you have some support right below you, if you determine there's enough room to take it, you can be aggressive and take it. You can see we get one of those little dipsy doodles there. And again, that's per the webinar. So if you take it and you have the regular super trend stop below you, generally you at least have to be aware that price could get stuck there. Keep in mind, if you look to the left, we do have a whole bunch of old resistance there now holding as support. So again, up to the individual. If you take a break of the big super trend stop right here, breaking the yellow, green line below the red, so it matches up. Now what I want to point out is this. On the 2 minute at that time, if you're going to try to short this, a couple ticks under the super trend stop, you can see the 2 minute is coming down to its super trend stop, as well as, I mean, you guys can see this resistance, right? If I go like this, let me just mark the highs here, right here, right? So now that would be support, also coming into the super trend stop here on the 2 minute, which could act as support as well. And now look, we've got that 40 points worth of space between our two stochastics. So this is a heads up that price is likely going to bounce or consolidate in order for that green line to find its way up to the red. So all these charts, the 2 and the 5, are not lining up to try this off the 1 minute short. Okay? And let's see where we're at now. Okay, looking here, you get closed above the super trend stop. And if you're not waiting for a close, you get filled on the bar preceding, a couple ticks above the super trend stop. But is it valid? No. We get closed above here, valid here, green line above the red, but when we look at the filtered chart, we're still in oversold. So that's a pass. Pass, pass, pass. If you're going to take it on the 1 minute, breaking the small super trend stop right here, green line is above the red. You do have that 40 points worth of space, so if you want to go ahead and give it a shot, the 5 minutes still agrees. It's now a question of, can it continue through the high of the day? And that is, you know, always the issue. Can it? Will it? Who knows? And then if you wanted to take it above the big super trend, stop everything in line for that as well. And that would have been around 11:20. And at that point, you have the green line above the red there as well. And you could have taken it there. No, there isn't an additional entry off the 6 range. So you'd be waiting for a pullback and another opportunity to enter. So I just wanted to show you guys that, and that was actually the last trade that I took, was the divergence trade. You're always looking on your entry chart for your entry based on the break of the super trend stop and what's the filter chart doing. And then added confirmation would be have the double stochastic agree on that. Okay, so I hope that helps you guys, and I can go over more. I'll try to do a couple more videos this week. I know this was a little long, but I'm getting lots of questions. And you guys who went to the webinar or plan on getting the recording, I will definitely have that chat room open on Friday so you guys can see it real time and ask me questions. Okay, have a great day, you guys.